Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor John Ferry from Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Fayetteville, New York, and this is the Psalm for Sunday. This Sunday is June 14th, 2020, and the psalm we have is Psalm 100. Psalm 100 is a beautiful psalm. It is often used in morning prayer. It's a psalm of praise. And the refrain for this Sunday is really sums up the message for much of what the lessons are about this Sunday, and that is that the whole earth and all its peoples belong to God. That's an especially important lesson for us now as we try to understand how we relate to others, how we form a new community, and God will guide us toward that new community. Jesus and his disciples started out by beginning to stretch the boundaries of their own community, and in very slow ways at first, and then gradually more and more to include all people. So we'll take a look at Psalm 100 for this Sunday. Shout out to the Lord, all the earth. Serve the Lord with joy. Come before him with a victory cry. This psalm, as far as I can see, was probably used on a joyous occasion when people were coming to the temple. And we'll see why I say that in a little bit. But they're coming to the temple and they're shouting out with the kind of joyful shout that you might hear at a big sporting event when the team wins. Uh, this is a shout that is a shout of gladness, happiness, and used at times of great victory. So shout out to the Lord, all the earth. It's not just the people of Israel, it's all the earth. And that includes not just human beings, but all of nature as well. Or call the human beings alike with nature are all called to serve the Lord with joy. So every one of us is included in that call. God calls us all to serve God with joy and to come before him with joy. This psalm commands that. And that's hard for us to do sometimes, especially at a time like this with the pandemic, with the questions of racial injustice before us. It's hard. But when we come before God, it's not just the emotion of joy that we come before God with. It's an attitude of joy, an attitude of happiness that we are in God's presence at all times. Know that the Lord is God. He made us. We belong to him. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Know that the Lord is God. When you're stressed, when it all seems too much, take 30 seconds. If you're feeling bold, take a full minute. And just for that 30 seconds or for that full minute, repeat to yourself slowly the phrase, know that the Lord is God. Know that God is in charge. Know that because we belong to God, our final destiny is in God's hands, and we can trust our good God to see us through to that destiny that God intends for us, because we belong to God. That also means that we're not in charge. There are a lot of things that we all need to learn to let go of. And if we remember that the Lord is God, know that the Lord is God, I think that'll help us to let go of some of it. Come through his gates with thanksgiving, into his courts with praise. Praise him and bless his name. And that's why I said I think this psalm was used for the joyful entry into the temple with after some kind of victory or in some special celebration, perhaps at when the rains returned in the fall, but at some wonderful celebration of something great that was happening. People come to the temple and rejoice. Now, when we think of those of that image of coming through the gates and into God's courts. Um, we can think of coming into a church, uh, or we can simply say coming into the day. That's why this psalm is used first thing in the morning in our morning prayer, because we're entering once again into God's courts. We're coming through God's gate when we begin a new day. And I hope that we could all learn to understand that when we wake up in the morning and begin again, that once again we are entering into God's presence. For the Lord is good, his kindness is everlasting, and his faithfulness is for every generation. The Lord is good always, generation after generation, and in every generation there are those who respond to God's goodness and answer God's call. God is always faithful. God's promise is always sure. How we live out our response to that promise is a challenge in every generation for us. In our generation, the challenge comes to us right now in the form of caring for each other in a context of a pandemic, caring for each other in the context of a new perception and a new recognition of the racial injustice that exists in our society. We are called to do everything we can to be careful with each other's lives and with the lives of our family members in this time of pandemic. We're also called to stand with our brothers and sisters, to listen, to try to understand, to try to see our own privilege, our own all the wonderful things that God has done for us, that we can use to stand with those for whom injustice is such a reality. So as we respond to God's goodness and faithfulness, we act in ways that make a difference in the world. And while we're doing that, we're entering God's courts with praise every morning. Praise and action because of what God has done for us in Jesus Christ. Thank you for being with me through this meditation on Psalm 100. If you wish, you can stay on and you will hear the psalm tone, the metrical psalm tone for Psalm 100 from the Genevan Psalter of 1551. Goodbye, God bless, and stay healthy.